Okay, starting with the 2015 A-level paper, I think some of the students have exams also these days, no? We'll get into question number 7. Question number 7 says, distinguish between pure public goods and merit goods. Very easy, guys. So when you get a question like this, what you need to do, remember you can't draw tables when they say distinguish. Your answer has to be in a paragraph format. So you can write one paragraph about a pure public good. So in the paragraph that you write about a pure public good, make sure that you talk about the fact that this is non-excludable. Okay, so write what is non-excludable. You can say a pure public good is a good that is non-excludable in consumption, and then explain what is non-excludable. One line, that is, those who do not pay cannot be excluded from consuming the good. That is what you call non-excludable. And then you also say further, a pure public good is also non-rival in consumption. That means the consumption of this good by one person will not leave less for another. And you can, summarize your answer there. That's 2 marks. Then you have to also talk about a merit good. So for a merit good, what are the main things that you need to write? For a merit good, the main things that you have to write is, you need to highlight and say, look here, a merit good is a good that generates positive externalities. It generates positive externalities in consumption. And you can say that the social benefits of consuming a merit good are greater than the private benefit. That's why there is an external benefit. So you can say, therefore, there is an external benefit that is generated through the consumption of a merit good. And also you can say, Lamai, that if you take things like merit goods, now pure public goods, you can also add to your last line and say, these are not provided by the market. Not provided by the market. Okay, market economy doesn't provide pure public goods. What about merit goods, guys? What can we say about merit goods? Public goods are not provided by the market. Merit goods, what can we say there? We can say, guys, merit goods are under-provided by the market. No, so you can say these goods are under-provided. If they are under-provided, okay, you can say, or you can say under-consumed. Okay, more better, right? Under-provided by the market. So if you can give that case, you all should most likely get your 4 marks. 2 marks on pure public good, right? Explaining the main story on this. In addition to this, if you want, right, these are just additional points. You can also say a merit good can be rival and excludable, but that is not a main one. Right? So you're not going to get main marks to this. You can say that a merit good is rival and excludable, but the other things, the fact that it generates a positive externality, there is an external benefit, the social benefit is greater than the private benefit, the fact that these merit goods will be underprovided by the market, those are the main things. And then you have pure public. Is that okay, guys? A very easy question to start off with. Okay, fine, can handle something like this easily. You can get your 4 marks. Then going into question 2. Explain using an appropriate diagram how the market system fails to allocate resources efficiently when the production of goods entail external costs. Which diagram should we draw? Which externality diagram? They're talking about external costs. They're talking about how the market system fails to allocate resources efficiently when the production generates an external cost. Which one, guys? There are 4 diagrams. You need to figure out which diagram to draw first. Others, you draw the wrong one. Which diagram do we draw? We draw the negative external. Why? They are talking about external cost, no, guys. Cost is something negative. No? So when there is an external cost, that means the social cost is more than the private cost. No? So we are talking about a negative externality, in production. That's the diagram. So remember guys, for a question like this, your diagram alone will give you around 2 marks because there is no lot to write now in this question. You need to explain the negative externality in production thing. So you're properly drawing a diagram itself and explaining that diagram gives you a lot of marks. So this is what you have to do now. So your diagram will look like this. Okay, your normal. Remember, we are drawing a externality in production. Therefore, what do? We draw one benefit curve. Marginal social benefit equals marginal private benefit. We draw two cost curves. Can you all tell me guys which cost curve is the higher one? In a negative externality in production, which one is the higher? Social cost or the private? Now, the social cost is higher, no? So this becomes your marginal social cost. This becomes your marginal private cost. You can also show Lamai the difference between these two is what? What's the difference between these two curves? Between the social cost and the private cost? Difference between this and this, you can show that that is your external cost number. The difference between the social and the private cost. That's the external cost. Okay. How do we figure out whether it's a negative externality in production? One, they have said efficiently when the production of goods. When they say production, it's production. If they say consumption, it's consumption. And also they have said generates external cost. Now, in a negative externality in production only, there is external cost. No? In a negative externality in production, for example, the private cost plus the external cost. Let's say there is a factory that is releasing some toxic gas to the environment. Their private cost is 100. That is their rent, wages, all of those. And then there is an external cost of 20. So therefore, social cost is 120. So they are generating an external cost means that's a negative externality in production. If they are not generating external cost, then that will be a positive externality in production. If your, for example, let's say external cost is a minus, actually if there's external benefit, so then your social cost will be only a 8. That's how you need to figure out which one that they're talking about. The more you read the question carefully, more questions you do, you should be able to figure out. Okay. Then guys, now what do you need to explain? This is the last chapter. No, I have to do unit number 9 and 10. 11 and 12 I have done. 9 and 12 are small units. All the others are there on YouTube. Okay, if you have missed the session, 9 and 10 is the one that is the live sessions that are pending. Okay. So then, guys, this is how you can start. Explain using appropriate diagram how a market fails to allocate resources efficiently. Now, what happens, Lamai, here? According to this, the social optimal level is where? Social optimal level, I'll mark it in green. Social optimal level is where the marginal social cost equals the marginal social benefit. That is over here. They have to charge, for example, P1 and produce Q1. But where is the market equilibrium? Market equilibrium, okay, market equilibrium is where private cost equals private benefit. Okay, so here, this is your market equilibrium, the line in blue. So they are charging a price that is too low and producing a quantity that is too high. So you need to now explain this story. So how can you explain it? You can say, okay, you can start off your answer by saying, in a market economy, you can say, I will not write the whole answer, guys. You can refer to your past paper book. There should be a similar answer. You can say, in a market economy, a producer takes into consideration only his private cost and private benefit. As a result, you can say they would be producing at the point, right? You can put a small letter here, producing at point A. In a situation like this, the market economy ignores the external cost, or a producer in a market economy ignores the external cost that it generates. In which case, the social cost is much higher than the private cost. You need to highlight the fact that in a negative externality, social cost is higher than the private cost. The producer will only look at his private cost. He ignores the external cost. Therefore, what happens? Therefore, there is a overproduction because he's thinking the cost is low. He's only looking at private cost. But actually, the cost of society is much higher. So given that this producer only looks at his private cost, what happens? Because of the fact that he is only looking at his private cost, there is inefficiency in resource allocation. How is there inefficiency in resource allocation? I'll just say RO. You can say, look here, these goods are overproduced. Now you can refer to your diagram, Lamai. You have drawn a diagram. No? You can say the social optimal level of output is Q1. However, this market economy, due to the fact that they have ignored their negative externalities, or due to the fact that they have ignored their external costs, they are producing at Q2. So there is an overproduction. You can just, in your diagram, show something like this also. So there is an overproduction between Q1 to Q2. And further, you can also talk about the price. The economy is supposed to charge the price of P1, but they're charging P2. So they have underpriced the goods as well. So if you can explain this, Lamai, that's more than fine. Now, what I want you all to do is practice this for the other three situations. Now, in your paper, this might not be the thing, no? In your paper, they can ask you for the other ones. They can ask you for a negative externality in consumption, or a positive externality in negative externality in consumption, positive externality in consumption, or they can also ask for a positive externality in production. So any of these three also can come. Same question, they can turn around. So you need to know how to draw the diagram, how to talk about the social benefit, social cost, the private benefit, private cost where applicable. You need to know how to talk about what is happening to the production, underproduced, overproduced, underconsumed, overconsumed, what's happening to the price, and you need to know to explain it. So for homework, right, for what you have done, do it for the other three situations. Draw the diagram and think that this question has been changed to that. So for example, you can say, explain using appropriate diagram how the market system fails to allocate resources efficiently. Or you can say, when the production of a good entails, you can say external benefit. So production generating external benefits means there is a negative external cost. Again, production. You can turn the question around, do it for all four. Is that okay, guys? Can you all handle a question like this? Not very hard, but you need to properly draw and explain. Yes, others. Similar to many previous past paper questions also. Then we'll come to the next one. Define proportional, progressive, and regressive taxes. Okay, easy, no? So what is a proportional tax, guys? A proportional taxes. So you have to start defining progressive, proportional, and what is a proportional tax? Now for this definition, guys, write around 2 to 3 lines. What is a proportional tax? A proportional tax is the tax that where the proportion of income or the percentage of tax charge does not change with the level of income. What is this? The percentage of, you can say, tax paid does not change with the income. Or you can say, in other words, the average tax rate. The average tax rate and marginal tax rate remains constant. So at any level of income, you will pay 10%. 10%, 10%, 10%. That's what you call a proportional tax. Then what can you tell about a progressive tax, Lamai? A progressive tax is a tax where the percentage of tax paid increases with the increase in income. So you can say, in other words, the average tax rate increases. So average tax rate increases. However, the marginal tax rate is higher than the average tax rate. So remember, in a progressive tax, as I'm not going into detail on this marginal tax rate, average tax rate. I'm hoping you all know that from your theory. So in a progressive tax, as your income increases, your average tax rate increases, but your marginal tax rate is still higher than your average tax rate. Increasing tax rate is percentage increasing tax base. So you can say the tax paid increases more than your increase in income. So with the increase in income, your tax rate increases. That's what progressive is. You can reword it in different ways, no problem. Then finally, a regressive tax. What can you say here? You can say a regressive tax is where the percentage of tax paid decreases with the increase in income. So in other words, you can say this is where the average tax rate starts to decrease with the increase in income. And here, guys, the marginal tax rate is less than the average tax rate. So if you can highlight these main points, Lamai, you should get your marks. Is that okay? Fine. Just a 3-mark thing, 1 mark, 1 mark, 1 mark, define proportional, progressive, and regressive. If you want to make your answer look a little nice, you can give an example. You will not get marks for the example, but you can give a small example also if you like. Then we'll go into question 4. Question 4 says, guys, what is meant by excess burden of taxation? Show graphically the excess burden of a unit tax when a unit tax is imposed on producers of a good. What is the excess burden of taxation, Laman? What? Remember, we talked about tax being neutral. Did we do that in the past papers? I remember talking about this excess tax burden. Was it in the mock exam series? Was it a doubt clearing or a past paper class session? In the mock? Right. So then I will re-explain this problem. What is this excess tax burden, guys? This excess tax burden is what we call the deadweight loss. Remember, in unit 3, in our syllabus in unit 3, when we talk about taxes on producers, remember, I'll draw the diagram. Okay. When we talk about taxes on producers, remember we draw, this is the demand curve. You have a supply curve here, then there is a tax, supply shifts. This is your equilibrium price before. This is your equilibrium quantity before. This is your equilibrium quantity after. And the price. Okay. And then you have the. Now, Lamai, this is the basic story. You had a supply curve, you had a demand curve. Government came and put a tax on the producer. When the government comes and puts a tax on the producer, the supply decreases. Supply goes to S1, let's, or we'll say S plus T. Okay, supply decreases. As a result of this, Lamai, you all know a deadweight loss, that is, this area gets created, a deadweight loss. So this deadweight loss is what we call the excess burden of taxation. So what is meant by excess burden? Now, you can't just say excess burden of taxation is deadweight loss. Now, you have to properly explain. So what is this excess burden, Lamai? This excess burden of taxation is where the consumer, now you all know, consumer surplus reduces by a certain amount. Okay. Producer surplus reduces by a certain amount. However, even though consumer surplus, produce surplus reduces by, let's say, for example, reduces, let's assume by 1,000, government revenue, only this part becomes government revenue. No? Remember, only this part in our diagram is government revenue. Consume and produce surplus has fallen by that entire part, the blue and the red. Government gets only the blue part. Yeah? So let's say consumer surplus, produce surplus falls by 1,000, but government revenue, okay, so government is getting, government revenue, let's say, increases only by 800. So 200 gets lost there, no? There's an inefficiency created. Consumer surplus, produce surplus falls by 1,000. That whole entire thing, government gets only 800. Therefore, there is what? There is a external excess tax burden of around 200 according to my example. You don't have to give numbers in your paper, guys. So this is what you can write. In your paper, you can say, as a result of a tax being imposed on producers, the producers will do what? Will reduce their supply. You start with that. As a result of the producers reducing their supply, consumer surplus and the producer's surplus would now tend to decrease. Point number 2. Then you can say, however, the government revenue, the revenue that the government earns is less than the reduction in consumer surplus and producer surplus. Again, when the government imposes a tax on the producers would decrease their supply. As a result, consumer surplus and producer surplus would decrease. Then the increase in government revenue, or the revenue earned by the government, is lesser than the decrease in consumer and producer surplus. As a result of this, it leads to the creation of an excess tax burden of taxation. It creates a result. It results in creating an excess tax burden, or in other words, results in the creation of a deadweight loss. Draw in your diagram and show. So according to the diagram, as a result, that supply shifts from S to ST. Okay, so then equilibrium price, you all put some numbers now. Don't put numbers, maybe you can put P1, P2. Okay, say that equilibrium price went from P1 to P2. Now the producers are getting only P3. Earlier equilibrium quantity Q1, now it went to Q2. Consumer surplus fell by this, producer surplus fell by this. As a result, this area is your deadweight loss, and you can kind of explain the story, guys. If you do that, you get your 5 marks. You will get around 2 marks for your proper diagram, and then 3 marks for the points that I told you on how to explain. Is that fine? That is what is meant by excess tax burden. Government revenue, yeah. If it's equal to change in CSPS, then there is no deadweight loss. But for that to happen, so, and you can also give a last point, guys. Now, for this deadweight loss not to happen, what should happen now? For a deadweight loss not to be created, for a tax not to create a excess tax burden, what should happen? For a tax not to create an excess tax burden, guys. Okay, yes, okay, the administrative compliance cost, fine. In addition to this, guys, what should happen? A tax has to be neutral. Why does consumer surplus produce surplus? That is unit number 3, guys. Those are very basics of unit number 3. When the equilibrium price goes up, quantity goes down. Unit number 3, taxes go and set. Okay, where CS and PS come down. So you can say, in order for a tax not to generate an excess tax burden, what should happen? A tax has to be neutral. What does that mean? A tax has to be neutral means that the tax should not affect the decision making. Now, why is there a deadweight loss here, Lamai? There is a deadweight loss here because supplier is reducing his supply. He's shifting the supply to the left. Now he's reducing his supply. That's why no deadweight loss is created. Now, if there is a tax, but the supplier doesn't reduce his supply, he still supplies the same amount, then there won't be a deadweight loss. No? Then the supply will still stay at S. But because of the tax, because the supply reduces its supply unit, there is a deadweight loss. So what is neutrality in taxation? Neutrality, the principle of neutrality in taxation is saying that when a tax is imposed, it should not affect the decision making of consumers or producers. So neutrality, right? What is neutrality? Should not affect, it should not affect the decision making. It should not affect the decision making, right? I'll not write the whole thing, of the consumer and the producer. So if it doesn't affect the decision making, then you can say it will not create a deadweight loss. But why is there a deadweight loss created in our situation, guys? In our situation, a deadweight loss gets created because it is affecting the decision making. Because of the fact that there is a tax, what should happen? No, it doesn't have to be perfectly elastic also. As long as the supplier doesn't care, he still supplies the same amount, it's fine. Doesn't really have to be perfectly elastic. So in our situation, why does it generate a excess tax burden? That is because it has affected, the tax has affected the supply decision making. Therefore, supply is maybe reducing his supply. Maybe he is moving to a different location, and maybe he is, let's say he had a big factory with 3 floors. Now he's having a factory with just 2 floors. He moved to another location. Maybe, you know, he now fired some people and cut down production. You know, maybe different things has happened. So you can talk about that. Change in CS, change in PS plus gamma driven at dead weight loss. That is the old way of looking at it. Guys, unit number 3, lot of things have changed. Dead weight loss, welfare, social welfare loss, change in economic surplus. Most of things have changed in the last 3-4 months. I don't know if your teachers updated you. I have not updated yet. I will be updating that most likely in the seminar and also in the mock exam. Whatever new questions we have, I will be teaching you all the new stuff. Please be updated on that. How to look at deadweight loss now, how to look at social welfare loss. Probably for the 2024 batch, I'm teaching them the new one now in the revision class. Make sure you all are updated on those guys. I feel a very probable question is going to come on that because now students are confused. Students are confused on the unit number 3, not unit number 8. On deadweight loss, social welfare loss, change in economic surplus. These are 3 different things. Maybe sometimes the area can be the same, but these are completely 3 different things. So maybe they can even give you a normal basic theory question and ask, but it explain the difference between deadweight loss and social welfare loss. They can give you that. Some people still think it's the same. Or maybe they can even give you a calculation and tell you to calculate deadweight loss. Then if you go and calculate social welfare loss, you get it wrong. So you need to clearly know. I will cover that in the seminar series. I can't remember when I'm doing unit number 3 on that day. When I teach minimum prices, maximum prices, and this, I will do. You had a recent question in your exam? Nice. Good that they're testing that because now it has changed. So it's creating awareness that the students should know that it has been changed. We'll discuss when we get some time. Okay. Is this fine here? The whole tax burden story. Talk about that it is affecting the supply decision making. So he is reducing his supply. Therefore, consumer surplus, producer surplus falls, but government earns a revenue less than this. There is an inefficiency created that leads to a excess tax burden. Right? Draw the diagram and all of it, and you can explain. Is that okay, guys? Any questions from that? Any questions? No. Okay. Then we go to question 5. Now, this one says Sri Lanka's public debt. Now, this can be a question even in your year, guys. Very relevant to your years. Sri Lanka's public debt appears to be even more worrisome compared to the government revenue. Compared to government revenue. So they tested efficiency and return. Yes, they can. I'll cover it in the seminar. Okay. Now they're asking you, they are saying our debt is worrisome, but compared to revenue, it's even worse. So now what you need to expect, right? These are the statistics that you will need. Number one, you will need debt to GDP values. Okay, so you need central government debt to GDP. Can you give me some recent numbers, Lamai? We'll go with let's say 2020, 2021, 2022. Can you give me some recent numbers? Anything that you all have remembered? How much is debt to GDP? In 21, it's 100.1. Okay. Oh, 100.4. I'll this one the numbers. 2022, if I'm not mistaken, it's 113 point something. 113.8. Anyone in 2020? How much is the number? Central government debt to GDP. Remember, guys, there is a table in my tute also. It should be there. Okay, you go to your okay, which table? Central government. This is 113.8. 2020 is 96.5. 2020 is 96.5. If you also want Lamai to give a better comparison, give a little bit of an old number. Let's say, now it's very hard to memorize all these numbers, but let's say, give the number in 2017, how much was it? Maybe it's not there in this graph, we can find. Then guys, there is this table. Now, this one. This is the main debt table, guys. From this, you can answer this question. Is it? In 2019, it was 81.9. Now, it's guys, the more practical you understand this, you will remember right now. Remember in our class also, I keep on talking about what happened recently. If you, along with the story, it's easy to remember. But just memorizing a number is completely difficult. Okay. The time that we are doing, no, 2023 CBSL report don't have to work. That will anyway released by April only. You don't have to worry about that. But you need to know things that is happening this year. Okay. So then look at this. Central government debt in 2019, it was 81.9. Okay, in 2019, 81.9. We'll say 2019, 81.9% of GDP. Okay. That is our central government debt. So one thing that you can clearly highlight is, look here, our central government debt as a percentage of GDP has increased. But that is not the only thing they are saying is worrisome compared to revenue. So look at our revenue. Look at our government revenue here. Yes, guys. There will be one. Here. Look at this debt service as a percentage of government revenue. What is debt service? Debt service means your loan installments, your interest, and the capital component. This is one of the main indicators. Guys. You see, from our this look at how sad this is. Okay, our debt service as a percentage of government revenue in from 2019 onwards. You see, in 2022, it has fallen a little. It is in 2021. It is 163.4%. What does that mean, Laman? That means from the total government revenue that we are getting, we can't even cover our total debt service. Forget about paying salaries, pensions, all of that. From the total revenue, total government revenue, that is tax revenue, non-tax, everything, that is not even enough to pay off our loan installment. Think how bad that is. Yep. That is why the debt service as a percentage of revenue is more than 100. So debt service as a percentage of revenue is more than 100. You need to understand that. Your debt service means, what is debt service, Lamai? Your debt repayments, no? For that year, how much of debt you have to repay? Interest plus the capital component. So the amount that you have to repay during a given year, more than 100% of revenue means it's more than your revenue. Yeah. So that is, think how serious of issue that is. We don't even have money to repay our previous loans. So forget about having money to pay salaries and pensions and all of that. We don't even have money to pay our previous loan. So you can write. So the debt service thing, right? You can highlight this. I'll split the screen. Okay. Okay. So debt service, you can write about this now, because why, guys? This question is asking about revenue. No? So writing a little bit of revenue is important here. You can't only just write about debt. So this is the debt service. What is debt service? Debt service as a percentage of revenue. Easy. From 2019, 107%, 141.9%, 163%, 63.4%, 151. You don't have to remember the exact number, Namai. But in your this thing, you can say it's approximately. Use those words. Now, sometimes you won't remember all of this. So in your paper, go and write, okay, government debt service payment as a percentage of total revenue is approximately 150% of 150% in the year 2022. So which means our debt service is 1.5 times larger than the total government revenue. More than enough. They can't, even the teacher who is marking the paper, even I don't remember all of it. But I am not, I'm not the one sitting for levels to memorize all of this, but they will expect you to know something, but that's okay. Now, main ones try to have some numbers. Now, these small ones, Lama, hard not to know numbers. Just have a basic idea. And then also, Lama, you can say this. Look at this interest payment as a percentage of total government revenue. Is there that? Interest payment as a percentage of GDP. Foreign debt service payment, interest payment GDP, interest payment expenditure. No. Okay. Then you can also talk a little bit about government revenue, Lama. Government revenue as a percentage of GDP. Revenue as a percentage of GDP. How much do we get? What are the numbers that we have? Total government revenue. As a percentage of GDP. 2021, 8.3. Right. 2022 is also 8.3, but we'll go with 8.2. The latest updated number is 8.3. And you can give some numbers, Lamai. So find the 2019 and stuff that is there in that other document that I shared. Okay. So what you have to basically do is you have to explain, look here. Okay. You have to explain, look here. What is happening? Our debt has been increasing. Our revenue has been decreasing. So it's making it even worse. So remember, guys, your answer is not only numbers. Your answer should incorporate these numbers. So this is more like a current context question. So probably that year there would have been a lot of talk. Now, 2015 or around 8 years ago, I also don't know what happened during that year. So during that year, maybe there would have been a lot of talk about our debt increasing and something. So therefore, they put a topic like this. That's how it comes. Is debt service also debt borne by the government? Yes, debt service means the debt repayment, the capital and the loan installment, basically. So our loan installments, our debt service is more than our government revenue. So for a certain year, now see, for example, for 2022, our debt service payment is 151.5%, means if we collect, we are earning only 100 rupees from revenue, but we have to pay 151.5 rupees as loan installment. That's the story. Is that fine, guys? So you can give in some numbers and you can explain. You don't have to give in all these numbers. You can give in certain numbers. Say that, look here, debt to GDP has increased, and even more bothersome issue is the debt service as a percentage of revenue. You can say our debt service is almost approximately 1.5 times of our total revenue for the year 2022. Okay. And then you can also say revenue has been coming down, and you can give. So it's only a 3-mark question, not a very big question. They are saying public debt appears even more worrisome when compared to government revenue. So remember, guys, if you only talk about debt, you're missing a part of it. Okay. So they are saying debt compared to revenue. So on one side, you need to show debt going up. On the other side, you can show revenue coming down. And then you can also give something like a middle indicator of debt service to revenue. Is that okay? A breakdown of domestic and foreign debt, I feel, is not needed because it's only a 3-mark question. They're talking about debt and revenue both. If it's only debt, maybe yes, domestic and foreign, you could have given a breakdown. 3-mark question for this one, not needed to go and break down as domestic and foreign and all of that. Is that fine? Okay, done. That's the 2015 year level paper. There were some good questions here. Revenue 8.2. No, so you can't now, when you say debt, this all doesn't have to be paid this year. Debt service is what you pay this year. Now, central government debt as a percentage of GDP, you don't pay all your debt this year. So you don't compare revenue 8.2 with 113.8. Not a viable comparison. Revenue you earn for that year. This 113.8 debt means all the accumulated debt. So in 2022, your total loans is 113% of your GDP. So if your GDP is 100, loans are 130. But that doesn't mean you have to use all your revenue to pay.